33 people were dead. The ship was gone, and the Atlantic Ocean had swallowed almost every piece of evidence. For months, families waited, investigators searched, and nobody could answer the question that haunted everyone connected to the disaster. What actually happened aboard El Faro? The storm was gone. The wreck was gone. The crew was gone. The only thing left was a mystery. Then investigators learned something extraordinary. The ocean had left behind a witness, not a survivor, not a distress beacon, a recorder, a device built for one purpose: to remember. Nearly 3 miles beneath the Atlantic Ocean, resting beside the wreck of El Faro, sat a small orange capsule. The Voyage data recorder, the maritime version of an aircraft black box. And if it survived, it could tell investigators exactly what happened during the ship's final hours. The challenge was getting to it. El Faro rested nearly 15,000 feet below the surface. At that depth, the pressure is crushing. The darkness is absolute, and recovery operations become some of the most difficult missions on Earth. Months passed. Search teams mapped the ocean floor. Specialized equipment scanned the wreck site. Investigators followed every lead they could. Then, finally, a breakthrough. The wreck had been located, and beside it sat the recorder, still intact, still waiting, still holding the final chapter of the story. When investigators recovered the device and downloaded the audio, they expected answers. What they found was something far more unsettling, because the recording didn't begin with panic. It began with professionals doing their jobs. Voices on the bridge, routine conversations, weather discussions, navigation updates, nothing dramatic, nothing that sounded like a disaster. That's what makes the audio so chilling. The people speaking had no idea the world would one day be listening. They thought they were just another crew completing another voyage. As investigators listened hour after hour, a timeline began emerging, and one of the first things they discovered challenged a common assumption. The crew wasn't ignoring the hurricane. They were talking about it constantly. Forecasts, weather models, projected tracks, changing conditions. The storm was on their minds. They knew Joaquin was dangerous. They knew conditions were worsening. They were actively discussing options. But the audio revealed a problem. The information kept changing. Forecasts shifted, models disagreed, predictions evolved, and every new update forced new decisions. Looking back, it's easy to believe the correct choice was obvious. Inside the moment, it wasn't. That's one of the hardest lessons investigators learned. The people on board weren't making decisions with hindsight. They were making decisions with uncertainty. Then investigators heard something else, something that changed the entire understanding of the disaster. The crew began discussing a growing list. The ship was leaning, not dramatically at first, but enough to attract attention, enough to create concern, enough to become part of nearly every conversation. A list can be dangerous, not because of the angle itself, but because it often signals something larger. A ship is supposed to balance itself. When that balance changes unexpectedly, something is wrong. Investigators continued listening, and gradually, the picture became clearer. The storm wasn't creating one emergency. It was creating several. At the same time, the sea conditions were worsening. Cargo was shifting. The list was increasing. Water was becoming a concern. Every problem amplified every other problem, and the crew was fighting all of them simultaneously. Then investigators reached one of the most important moments on the recorder: the loss of propulsion. The engine stopped providing the power needed to maneuver effectively. That moment transformed everything. Before the propulsion loss, El Faro still had options. Afterward, the hurricane began making decisions for the crew. Without power, the ship became increasingly vulnerable to the sea. Every wave mattered more. Every degree of list mattered more. Every minute mattered more. Investigators listening to the recording could hear the urgency growing. Not panic, urgency. Professionals trying to solve a rapidly escalating crisis. Engineers worked to restore systems. Officers exchanged information. The bridge tried to maintain situational awareness. Everyone was focused on finding solutions. Nobody was talking about giving up. Nobody believed the outcome was already decided. And that may be the most heartbreaking revelation of all. The crew kept fighting until the end. As conditions deteriorated, conversations became more serious, more frequent, more urgent. The ship continued taking punishment from the sea. Reports of flooding became increasingly concerning. The list worsened. Mechanical challenges multiplied, and investigators could hear something changing in the voices. Not fear, realization. The realization that this wasn't another storm. This wasn't another difficult voyage. This was becoming a survival situation. For the first time, the crew began confronting a possibility nobody wanted to consider. The ship might not recover. Hour after hour, investigators listened as options disappeared. The weather wasn't improving. The list wasn't improving. The flooding wasn't improving. And restoring control became increasingly difficult. The recorder captured more than information. It captured human beings trying to adapt to a crisis unfolding faster than anyone expected. Then came the final phase, the point where investigators realized there would be no recovery, no turnaround, no miracle. The ship's condition continued deteriorating. The storm remained relentless, and the crew's ability to regain control kept shrinking. The recording does not provide a dramatic movie ending. No heroic speech, no final declaration, no perfectly scripted last words. What it provides is something far more powerful. Reality. The sound of experienced mariners confronting a disaster in real time, trying to solve problems, trying to save their ship, trying to save each other, until they no longer could. Eventually, the recording ends. Not because investigators stop listening, because the recorder stops recording. The voices disappear, the conversations end, and the final witness falls silent. For investigators, the recorder solved many mysteries. It helped reconstruct the disaster. It revealed how rapidly conditions deteriorated. It explained how multiple failures combined into a catastrophe. And perhaps most importantly, it showed that no single mistake doomed El Faro. The disaster emerged from a chain of events: forecast uncertainty, hurricane intensification, mechanical failures, cargo issues, flooding, loss of propulsion. Each problem made the next problem worse, until the situation became impossible to reverse. 33 people lost their lives aboard El Faro, but because of the recorder, their story did not disappear with them. The ocean kept the ship. The ocean kept the wreck, but it could not keep the truth. And that truth remains one of the most important lessons in modern maritime history. A reminder that experience does not eliminate risk, that uncertainty can be deadly, and that sometimes the most dangerous disasters are not caused by a single catastrophic mistake, but by a series of decisions that seem reasonable right up until the moment they aren't. The Atlantic Ocean eventually grew calm again. Hurricane Joaquin disappeared. The search ships returned home. The investigation ended, but the voices recovered from the darkness ensured that El Faro's final voyage would never be forgotten. And nearly 3 miles beneath the surface, the wreck still rests where it fell, silent, hidden, and serving as a permanent reminder of the storm that 33 people could not escape. If you enjoyed this series, please like and subscribe for the next epic true story.